I never thought pretending to be unconscious would be the hardest thing I'd ever done, but there I was, lying in a hospital bed in Seoul, unable to move, listening to my husband's family say things they'd hidden for 3 years. Every word felt like a knife, and I couldn't even flinch. Let me back up. My name is Tandiwe Moyo. I'm from Zimbabwe, and I've lived in Seoul for 8 years now. I came here on a scholarship, fell in love with the city, and built a career as an interior designer. My life was good. Actually, it was better than good until I met Kwok Tae-yoon. Tae-yoon walked into my design studio on a Tuesday afternoon. He needed someone to redesign his office space, he said. He was an architect, which made things interesting because architects usually have very specific ideas about design. But Tae-yoon listened to every word I said. He asked questions. He smiled at my suggestions. By the end of that first meeting, I knew something had shifted. 3 months later, he asked me to dinner. 6 months after that, he told me he loved me. A year later, we got married at a small ceremony that his family attended, with faces like they were at a funeral instead of a wedding. That was 3 years ago. Now, I spend my days creating beautiful spaces for other people while feeling like I don't belong in my own husband's family home. Funny how life works, right? Tonight started like every other family dinner. I stood in front of my closet for 20 minutes trying to decide what to wear. Not too casual. Tae-yoon's mother hates that. Not too fancy. His sister Ji-eun once said I was showing off. I settled on a simple blue dress and hoped for the best. "You look beautiful," Tae-yoon said when I came out. He was already dressed, leaning against the doorframe with that soft smile he saves just for me. "Your mom is going to say the color is too bright," I said. "She won't. She will." He walked over and took my hands. "Thandi, stop worrying so much." That's what he always says. Stop worrying. They're trying. Give them time. I've given them 3 years. How much time do people need? We drove to his family's home in silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind where you both know you're thinking about the same thing, but nobody wants to start the argument. The house was already full when we arrived. Tae-yoon's mother was in the kitchen. His father sat in the living room, reading a newspaper. Ji-eun was there with her husband and their 2 kids. Even his grandmother had come, sitting in her usual corner like a silent judge. "You're late," his mother said, without looking up from the pot she was stirring. "We were 5 minutes early." "Traffic," Tae-yoon lied smoothly. He's gotten good at that, smoothing things over, filling awkward spaces with small lies that make everyone comfortable. Dinner was the usual performance. I helped set the table. I served the elders first. I smiled and nodded, and made myself as small as possible. Ji-eun talked about her daughter's piano recital that I hadn't been invited to. "It was just family," she said when she noticed my face. "You know, nothing formal. I am family." I wanted to scream it. Instead, I said, "That's nice. I'm sure she did wonderfully." Tae-yoon's mother made her comment about my dress, just like I predicted. Blue is very bold. Korean daughters-in-law usually wear softer colors. "I'll remember that," I said quietly. Under the table, Tae-yoon squeezed my hand, his version of support. A hand squeeze, not a word to his mother, just a squeeze. The grandmother watched me all through dinner. She didn't speak much, but her eyes followed everything I did, every bite I took, every time I reached for a dish, every smile I forced onto my face. After dinner, I helped clean up. Ji-eun and her mother stood at the sink talking in rapid Korean, the kind they use when they don't want me to understand. My Korean is actually very good, but they assume it's not. I heard Ji-eun say something about foreigners and tradition. I heard his mother sigh. I put down the dish I was holding and walked out. Nobody noticed. Before you go, do me a quick favor. If you're enjoying this story so far, hit that like button. Seriously, it helps more than you know. And if you want to hear more stories like this, subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you won't regret it. Now, back to what happened next. I found Tae-yoon in the living room with his father. They were talking about work, safe topics, easy topics. Nothing about the tension in the kitchen or the way his family treated me. I'm going to get some air, I told him. He looked up, concerned. You okay? Fine. Just need a minute. I stepped outside into the cool evening. It was late April, and Seoul was beautiful at this time of year. The air smelled like cherry blossoms. I stood there trying to remember why I put myself through this every week. Oh, right. Love, that thing that's supposed to conquer all. You should leave him. I spun around. The grandmother had followed me out. She stood in the doorway, tiny and wrinkled and terrifying. Excuse me? My grandson is a good man, but this family, we are traditional. You will never be comfortable here. You will always be the outsider. My throat tightened. I love him. Love is not always enough, she said. Then she went back inside, leaving me alone with her words. I stood there for a long time. Too long, maybe. When I finally went back in, Tae-yoon was ready to leave. We said our goodbyes. His mother hugged him but only nodded at me. Ji-yoon waved from across the room. His father shook Tae-yoon's hand. The drive home started quiet again. Then Tae-yoon broke it. They're trying, Thondi. I know it doesn't seem like it, but they are. Your grandmother told me to leave you. He nearly swerved. What? Just now. Outside. She said, I'll always be an outsider, and I should leave. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. She didn't mean it like that. Grandma is from a different generation. She doesn't understand. Then explain it to her. Explain to all of them that I'm your wife, and I'm not going anywhere. I can't just attack my family. I'm not asking you to attack them. I'm asking you to defend me. It's complicated. It's really not. We stopped at a red light. Rain had started falling, light at first, then heavier. The windshield wipers moved back and forth, like my life, back and forth between hope and disappointment. I just need more time, he said. You mean I need to give them more time? Thondi. No, Tae-yoon. I'm tired. I'm tired of being patient and understanding and making myself smaller so your family can be comfortable. When do I get to be comfortable? The light turned green. He drove. We didn't speak again. When we got to our apartment, he tried to hold me, but I pulled away. I needed space. I grabbed my keys. Where are you going? He asked. For a drive. I need to think. It's raining. I know. I left before he could argue. Got in my car and just drove. No destination, just away. Away from the apartment, away from the family dinners, away from the constant feeling of not being enough. Seoul at night in the rain is like something from a movie. Neon signs reflecting off wet streets, people rushing under umbrellas. I drove through neighborhoods I knew, and some I didn't. I wasn't paying attention to where I was going. I was too busy replaying every moment from dinner, every slight, every ignored comment, every time Tae-yoon chose peace over me. The grandmother's words kept echoing. You should leave him. You will always be the outsider. Maybe she was right. Maybe love wasn't enough. Maybe I was kidding myself, thinking time would change anything. I wiped my eyes. Was I crying? I couldn't tell if it was tears or just exhaustion. The rain got harder. I turned down a side street, trying to find my way back to familiar territory. That's when I saw the headlights coming at me from the wrong direction. I swerved. The other car swerved. Brakes screamed. Metal crunched. Glass shattered. The world spun sideways, and everything went dark. When I opened my eyes again, nothing made sense. Bright lights, voices shouting in Korean, hands touching me, moving me. Pain in my head, sharp and overwhelming. Can you hear me? Someone asked in Korean. I tried to answer, but nothing came out. She's responsive. Possible head trauma. Get her to Seoul Medical, now. The ambulance ride was a blur. Sirens. More voices. Someone holding my hand, but it wasn't Tae-yoon. A paramedic, maybe. I tried to stay awake, but the darkness kept pulling me under. At the hospital, more lights. A doctor's face appeared above me. "Mrs. Quack, I'm Dr. Park. You've been in an accident. We're going to take care of you. Can you tell me your name?" "Thandiwe," I whispered. "Good. Stay with me, Thandiwe." But I couldn't. The darkness won. I don't know how long I was out. Time became meaningless. Sometimes I heard voices, sometimes I felt hands, sometimes nothing at all. Then slowly, like rising from deep water, I started to come back. I could hear again. I could feel the bed beneath me, the blanket over me, the IV in my arm. But I couldn't move. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't speak. Locked-in syndrome, I thought. Or maybe just the head injury. Either way, I was awake but trapped in my own body. I heard footsteps, the door opening, voices I recognized. Is she going to be okay? Tae-yoon. He sounded destroyed. "She's stable," a doctor said. "The head trauma was significant, but not critical. She might be unconscious for several more hours, maybe longer. We'll monitor her closely." "Can I stay?" "Of course. Your family is in the waiting room. You should let them know the update." More footsteps. The door closing. Then just the sound of machines beeping and Tae-yoon breathing. He took my hand. "Thandi, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about everything. You were right. About all of it. I should have done better. I should have protected you. Please wake up. Please." I wanted to squeeze his hand. I wanted to tell him I could hear him, but my body wouldn't cooperate. He stayed for a while, then left to talk to his family. I could hear them in the hallway, his mother crying. Ji-hoon's voice raised in concern, the grandmother's quiet murmur. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. I couldn't tell. Nurses came and went. They checked machines, adjusted my IV, spoke in soft tones. Then late, so late it must have been past midnight, the door opened again. Multiple footsteps this time. The nurse said we could sit with her for a bit. Ji-hoon's voice. "Where's Tae-yoon?" His mother. "Getting coffee. He hasn't left the hospital since she arrived." They settled into chairs around my bed. 3 people at least, maybe 4. I focused on breathing normally, on not giving away that I was aware. "She looks so fragile," Ji-hoon said. "She is fragile," the mother replied. I never understood what Tae-yoon saw in her. My heart rate monitor beeped steady. "Stay calm," I told myself. "Don't react." "Mother, don't say that," Ji-hoon said, but she didn't sound convincing. "Why not? She can't hear me. And it's the truth. From the moment he brought her home, I knew it was wrong." "Wrong how?" Another voice. The grandmother. "She doesn't fit. She'll never fit. Korean society is not kind to mixed marriages. The judgment we've faced, the whispers at church, the questions from friends. It's been exhausting. So you've been suffering," Ji-hoon said. "What about her? She chose this. She knew what she was getting into." "Did she, though?" Silence. Then the mother spoke again, quieter now. "I never accepted her. I kept hoping it was temporary, that she'd realize this wasn't working and leave. Or that Tae-yoon would wake up and see reason." Each word landed like a punch. 3 years of polite dinners and forced smiles, and this was what she really thought. "I deliberately didn't invite her to family events," Ji-hoon said suddenly. "I thought if she felt excluded enough, she'd give up. I wanted my brother back, the way things were before her." "Ji-hoon," the mother said, but she didn't sound angry. She sounded understanding. "I know it was wrong," Ji-hoon continued, "especially now, seeing her like this. But I couldn't help it. She changed everything." The grandmother spoke then, her old voice cutting through. "Do you remember when someone tried to pay her to leave? Before the wedding?" The room went silent. My heart rate monitor beeped faster. I tried to calm down but couldn't. "What are you talking about?" the mother asked. "Someone in this family wrote her a check, told her to leave Tae-yoon before the wedding. She never cashed it, obviously, but someone tried." "Who?" Ji-hoon demanded. "I know who," the grandmother said. I've always known. Then tell us. Not now. Not here. The door opened. Footsteps. Mom, you guys should go home and rest, Taeyun's voice. I'll call if anything changes. We want to stay, his mother said, her voice suddenly gentle, worried. Nothing like it was a moment ago. Please, you've been here for hours. Go home. They argued softly, but eventually agreed. More footsteps. The door closing. Then just Taeyun and me again. He sat down heavily. I don't know if you can hear me, but I need you to fight. I need you to come back. I can't lose you, Thondi. I know I've been a terrible husband. I know I let them hurt you, but I'm going to fix it. I promise. Just wake up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to grab him and shake him and tell him I heard everything his family said. That check. Someone paid me to leave. Who? When? Why didn't I know about this? But I couldn't do anything except lie there, trapped in my own body, while my world fell apart around me. The night dragged on. Nurses came and went. Taeyun fell asleep in the chair, his hand still holding mine, and I lay there, awake, aware, drowning in secrets I was never meant to hear. By morning, I'd made a decision. I would pretend. I would act like I remembered nothing from that night in the hospital, and I would find out who tried to pay me to leave 3 years ago, who wanted me gone badly enough to offer money, who in that family hated me that much. The sun came up. Light filtered through the hospital room window. A new nurse arrived for the morning shift. Mr. Kwok, she said gently, waking Taeyun. You should get some rest. We'll take good care of her. I'm not leaving, he said. At least get some breakfast. There's a cafeteria on the second floor. He hesitated, then agreed. I'll be right back, Thondi, he whispered, kissing my forehead. When he left, the nurse checked my vitals. Your readings are getting stronger, she said, even though she thought I couldn't hear. I think you'll wake up soon. Your body is healing. She was right. I could feel control coming back. My fingers twitched. My eyelids fluttered. The fog in my brain was lifting. But I forced myself to stay still. Not yet. I needed to hear more. I needed to understand. The doctor came in around 8 in the morning. Dr. Park, the same one from when I arrived. Interesting, he murmured, looking at my charts. Her brain activity is increasing. She might be waking up. Should I call the family? The nurse asked. Yes, and page me immediately if there's any change. Minutes later, I heard them all arrive. Taeyun, his mother, Ji-eun, even the grandmother. They gathered around my bed. Has she moved at all? Taeyun asked. Not yet, the nurse said, but her vitals are strong. It could be any time now. They waited. I could feel all their eyes on me, the weight of their attention, the guilt, the fear, because if I woke up and remembered what they said, everything would change. I decided it was time. Slowly, carefully, I let my fingers move, just a little, enough to notice. Did you see that? Taeyun grabbed my hand. Thondi, can you hear me? I fluttered my eyelids. The light was painful after so long in darkness. Shapes and colors blurred together. She's waking up, Ji-eun said. Get the doctor. I opened my eyes fully. Everyone's face came into focus. Taeyun, crying. His mother pale. Ji-ton anxious. The grandmother unreadable. Thondi? Taeyun's voice cracked. You're awake. Thank God you're awake. I blinked slowly, trying to look confused. Disoriented, like someone waking up after a trauma with no memory of what happened. Where am I? I whispered. My voice came out rough, scratchy. The hospital. You were in an accident. Do you remember? I made my face uncertain. An accident? I can't remember anything. Relief flooded the room. I could see it on every face. The mother's shoulders relaxed. Ji-eun exhaled. Even the grandmother's expression softened. They thought I remembered nothing. No family dinner. No argument in the car, no whispered confessions in a hospital room they thought I couldn't hear. Dr. Park arrived and checked me over, asked questions, shined lights in my eyes, tested my reflexes. Memory loss after head trauma is common, he assured everyone. It might come back gradually, or there might be gaps that never fill in. We'll monitor her, but overall, this is very good news. Very good news for them, maybe. For me, it was the beginning of something else entirely. They kept me in the hospital for 3 more days. 3 days of playing the perfect patient with convenient memory loss. 3 days of watching Tae-yoon's family visit with guilty faces and too much kindness. 3 days of planning my next move. Tae-yoon barely left my side. He brought me soup from my favorite restaurant. He read to me. He apologized over and over for the argument we had before the accident, even though I pretended not to remember it clearly. "We fought?" I asked, making my voice small and confused. "It doesn't matter now," he said quickly. "All that matters is you're okay." But it did matter. Everything mattered now. His mother visited on the 2nd day. She brought flowers, expensive ones, and sat by my bed with her hands folded. "Thandiwe," she said, and I noticed she actually used my full name instead of just nodding at me. "I'm glad you're recovering well." "Thank you," I said. "I know we haven't always been close," she continued, choosing her words carefully. "But you're family. You're Tae-yoon's wife, and I want you to know that we care about you." I wanted to laugh. Or scream. Instead, I smiled weakly. "That means a lot." She looked relieved, like she'd passed some test, like her bedside visit had erased 3 years of coldness. She stayed for 20 minutes, talking about nothing important, then left. Ji-eun came next, bringing her kids. They stood awkwardly at the door. "We made you a card," her daughter said, holding up a crayon drawing of what might have been flowers or possibly explosions. Hard to tell. "It's beautiful," I said, and I meant it. The kids weren't the problem. They'd never been cruel to me. After they left, Ji-eun lingered. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly, "for everything. I haven't been a good sister-in-law." "It's okay," I lied. "No, it's not. But I want to do better. I want us to have a real relationship." I studied her face. She looked sincere. Guilt does that to people, makes them suddenly want to fix everything they broke. But I remembered what she'd said in this very room when she thought I couldn't hear. She'd deliberately excluded me, hoping I'd give up and leave. "I'd like that too," I said, still playing my part. The grandmother didn't visit until the 3rd day, right before I was supposed to go home. She came alone, closed the door behind her, and sat in the chair closest to my bed. "You're a good actress," she said. My blood went cold. "I'm sorry?" "You heard us. That night, you were awake." I considered lying, but something in her eyes told me she'd know. The grandmother had always been sharp, always watching. Of course she'd figured it out. "Yes," I said quietly. She nodded, unsurprised. "What are you going to do about it?" "I don't know yet. Revenge, confrontation, divorce. I just want the truth. Someone tried to pay me to leave. I want to know who." The grandmother studied me for a long moment. "And when you find out, then what?" "Then I decide if this marriage is worth saving." She stood up slowly, her joints creaking. At the door, she paused. "The person who wrote that check believed they were protecting this family. Remember that when you find them. Motivation matters." "Does it? Does motivation matter when the action was cruel?" "Sometimes," she said. "Sometimes people do terrible things out of love." Then she left, and I was alone with her cryptic words and my racing thoughts. Tae-yoon took me home that afternoon. Our apartment felt different somehow. Smaller, maybe. Or maybe I was different. Hard to tell. "I'm going to take a week off work," he announced. "Stay home and take care of you." "You don't have to do that." "I want to. Please let me do this." So I did. For 3 days, he cooked and cleaned and hovered. He was attentive in a way he hadn't been in months. Maybe guilt was making him a better husband, or maybe almost losing me had woken something up in him. But I had work to do, and I couldn't do it with him watching my every move. "I'm going back to the studio tomorrow," I told him on the fourth day. "Just for a few hours. I have projects I need to check on. Are you sure you're ready?" "I'm sure." "I need normalcy, Taeyun. I can't just sit here thinking about the accident." He agreed reluctantly. The next morning, I got dressed and left. But I didn't go to my studio. I went to his family's home. His mother had mentioned she'd be out all day at some charity event. His father would be at work. Jiyeon had her kids' school activities. The house would be empty. I'd never done anything like this before. Sneaking into my in-laws' home to search for evidence felt wrong on every level. But they'd been hiding things from me for 3 years. Turnabout seemed fair. I used the key Taeyun had given me for emergencies. The house was silent when I entered. Too silent. Every footstep sounded loud on the wooden floors. Where would someone hide a secret from 3 years ago? I started in the study, the room his father used for family documents. There were filing cabinets full of papers, insurance documents, property deeds, tax records, nothing personal. I moved to the living room, to the bookshelf where his mother kept photo albums. I pulled them down one by one, flipping through pictures of Taeyun growing up. Baby photos, school photos, college graduation, but nothing from around our wedding time. That was strange. Shouldn't there be wedding photos? Even if they hated the wedding, wouldn't there be some record of it? I kept searching. In the third album, I found gaps. Spots where photos had been removed. 4 pages worth. All around the time Taeyun and I got engaged and married. Someone had taken them out. Recently, too, because the album pages weren't yellowed or worn where the photos had been. Why remove wedding photos now? 3 years later, my phone buzzed. A text from Taeyun. "How's the studio? Taking it easy, I hope." I felt a pang of guilt. I'd never lied to him like this before. All good. Catching up on emails. I put the albums back and moved upstairs. The grandmother had a room on the 2nd floor. She didn't live here full time, but she stayed over often enough to have her own space. The room was neat and sparse. A bed, a dresser, a small desk. I opened the desk drawer carefully. Inside were letters, lots of them, tied with string. Old correspondence, maybe from when she was younger. Beneath the letters was a small notebook. I opened it. Diary entries, written in Korean with shaky handwriting. I flipped through, looking for dates around my wedding. There, 3 years ago, April. The entry was short. Taeyun is making a mistake. Someone has to stop this before it's too late. The family name matters. Tradition matters. That girl will never understand our ways. That girl, me. The next entry, a week later. It's done. The offer has been made. If she truly loves him, she'll take the money and leave. If she stays, then I'll know she's after something else. My hands shook. The grandmother. It was her. She'd tried to pay me to leave. But wait, the handwriting. I looked closer. This wasn't the grandmother's writing. It was too steady, too firm. The grandmother's hands trembled now. These entries would have been from 3 years ago, sure, but even then her writing had shown signs of age. This writing belonged to someone younger. I heard a car door slam outside. My heart jumped into my throat. I shoved the notebook back, closed the drawer, and rushed to the window. Jiyeon's car was in the driveway. I'd been so focused on searching, I'd lost track of time. She was home early. I heard the front door open. "Mom? Are you home?" I stood frozen in the grandmother's room. If she found me here, how would I explain this? I couldn't use the bathroom excuse. There was one downstairs. I couldn't say I was looking for something. That would be suspicious. Footsteps on the stairs. I made a split-second decision. I walked out of the room and headed toward the stairs, trying to look casual. "Oh, Thondiwei," Jian said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I came to return something," I said, thinking fast. "Your mother left a dish at the hospital. I wanted to bring it back before I forgot." You didn't have to do that. You're still recovering. I was out anyway, and I was nearby. She looked at me oddly but didn't push. Well, since you're here, do you want some tea? The last thing I wanted was tea with Jiun, but refusing would seem strange. Sure. We went downstairs. She put the kettle on and pulled out cups. I sat at the kitchen table, my mind racing. The notebook upstairs, the handwriting that didn't match the grandmother, the missing photos. How are you feeling? Really? Jion asked, sitting across from me. Better. Still tired. I can imagine. That accident was scary. Taeyun was a mess. I've never seen him like that. He told you about it. He called me from the hospital, crying, said he'd almost lost you, that he'd been a terrible husband. I sipped my tea. He's been very attentive since I woke up. Good. He should be. You're his wife. You should come first. The irony of her saying that, after admitting she'd deliberately excluded me, was almost funny. Jiun, I said carefully, can I ask you something? Of course. Why aren't there wedding photos in the family albums? Her face changed, just slightly, but I saw it. What do you mean? I noticed the other day, when your mom was showing me some old pictures, there are no photos from our wedding in the family albums. She set down her cup. I don't know. Maybe they're in a different album. Maybe. We sat in uncomfortable silence. Then she spoke again, quieter. Thandiwe, I know this family hasn't been fair to you. I know I haven't been fair to you. But things are going to change. This accident, it made us realize how precious life is, how quickly we can lose people. It's funny, I said, how it takes almost losing someone to realize you should have treated them better all along. She flinched. You're right. I have no excuse. All right, quick pause. I know you're probably as frustrated as I am right now, wondering who wrote that check and why everyone's suddenly being so nice. Things are about to get even more intense. If you're invested in finding out what happens next, drop a comment and let me know what you think. Who do you think tried to pay Thandiwe to leave? Drop your guesses below. Now let's get back to the story. I finished my tea and left soon after. On the drive back to our apartment, I thought about everything I'd found. The diary entries that weren't in the grandmother's handwriting. The missing photos, Ji-eun's reaction when I asked about them. Someone was covering their tracks. But who? And why now? At home, I opened my laptop and did something I probably should have done years ago. I searched for information about the Kwok family. Taeyun had always been private about his family's background. I knew they were well off. His father owned a successful business, but I'd never dug deeper. What I found surprised me. The Kwok family wasn't just well off. They were connected. Old money. His grandfather had been a prominent politician. His uncle was a judge. The family name carried weight in certain Seoul circles. No wonder they'd been horrified when Taeyun wanted to marry a foreigner. It wasn't just about me being from Zimbabwe. It was about protecting a legacy, a reputation they'd built over generations. I understood it better now. Not that understanding made it hurt less. My phone rang. Taeyun. Hey, where are you? I came by the studio, but you weren't there. I'd forgotten to cover that lie. Oh, I left early. I'm at home. Wasn't feeling great, so I came back to rest. Are you okay? Should I come home? No, I'm fine. Just tired. Finish your work. He hesitated. Thandi, you'd tell me if something was wrong, right? I mean, beyond the obvious. You seem distant since you woke up. I'm just processing everything. The accident, the hospital, it's a lot. I know. I'm here though, whatever you need. After we hung up, I sat on the couch staring at nothing. This was my life now. Lying to my husband while investigating his family. Pretending I didn't know the truth about what they thought of me. Playing detective in my own marriage. The next day, I actually went to my studio. My assistant, Min-ji, nearly cried when she saw me. Boss, you should be resting, she said, hugging me carefully like I might break. I'm fine. Really. What did I miss? She caught me up on projects. A restaurant redesign was behind schedule. A residential client wanted to change their entire color scheme. Normal work problems that felt refreshing compared to my family drama. Around lunch, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. We need to talk about the family. Meet me at Jangmi Cafe at 3. Come alone. My heart rate spiked. Who was this? I typed back. Who is this? No response. I stared at the message. This could be dangerous, or it could be exactly what I needed, someone with information. At 2:30, I told Minji I had a client meeting and left. Jangmi Cafe was in Itaewon, a neighborhood I didn't visit often. It was small and quiet, the kind of place you go when you don't want to be noticed. I arrived at 3 exactly, scanned the cafe, and there, in a back corner booth, sat Taeyun's father. I'd never had a one-on-one conversation with him. At family dinners, he barely spoke. He was a shadow, present, but not really there. I walked over slowly. You wanted to see me. Sit, he said. Not unkindly, but not warm either. I sat. A waitress came over. He ordered 2 coffees without asking what I wanted. You're wondering who tried to pay you to leave my son, he said once we were alone. I decided honesty was the only option. Yes, it wasn't me. Then why are we here? Because I know who it was. And I think you deserve to know the truth before you do something you can't take back. My pulse raced. Tell me. First, you need to understand something. This family has rules, expectations. When you married Taeyun, you became part of that whether you wanted to or not. I did want to. I love him. I believe you. But love doesn't change social reality. My wife has spent 3 years fielding questions from her friends about why our son married a foreigner. My daughter has dealt with whispers at her kids' school. Even I've lost business connections because of it. Each word was like a slap. So you're saying I ruined your lives? I'm saying actions have consequences, and the person who tried to pay you to leave was thinking about those consequences. Who was it? He took a sip of his coffee. Before I tell you, I need to know what you plan to do with this information. I don't know yet. Will you leave my son? I don't know that either. He studied me for a long moment. You're stronger than we gave you credit for. My wife thought you'd be gone within a year. She underestimated you. She told me that? Not in those words, but I know her. I've been married to her for 35 years. I know what she thinks, even when she doesn't say it. And what do you think? I think my son loves you more than he's loved anything in his life. I think you've been patient when most people would have walked away, and I think this family has been unfair to you. It was the most he'd ever said to me, and possibly the kindest. The person who wrote that check, he continued, did it because they were scared. Scared of change, scared of judgment, scared of losing control over a family they'd worked hard to build. That's not an excuse. No, it's not. But it's context. Just tell me who it was. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and slid it across the table. It's all in here. The check you never cashed. Copies of bank statements showing where the money came from. Everything you need. I reached for it, but he put his hand on top of the envelope. Before you open this, ask yourself what you really want. Do you want revenge, justice, or do you want a family that actually accepts you? I want the truth. The truth comes with a price. Once you know, you can't unknow. Once you confront them, there's no going back to how things were. How things were wasn't working. He lifted his hand. I took the envelope. One more thing, he said as I stood to leave. That accident you had, it wasn't an accident. I froze. What? The other driver. He was drunk, yes, but he was also the younger brother of someone who owed our family money. He'd been making threats for weeks, threatening to hurt us however he could. Are you saying he hit me on purpose? I'm saying the police investigated and found evidence of intent. He'd been following you, waiting for an opportunity. The rain just gave him cover to make it look accidental. My legs felt weak. I sat back down. Does Tae-yoon know this? Not yet. I only found out this morning. The detective called me. Why are you telling me? Because you're family. Whether my wife accepts it or not, whether my daughter likes it or not, you're my son's wife, and someone tried to hurt you to hurt us. You deserve to know. He stood up, left money on the table for the coffee, and walked out. I sat there for a long time, the envelope in my hands. Around me, other customers chatted and laughed. Someone's phone rang. The espresso machine hissed. Normal life continuing, while mine turned upside down. Finally, I opened the envelope. Inside was a check made out to me for 50 million won, dated 1 week before my wedding. The signature was barely legible, but the name on the account was clear. Kwak Ji-eun, Tae-yoon's sister. I flipped to the next page, a printed email. Ji Tae-yoon to someone, I couldn't tell who. I left the money at her apartment. If she has any sense, she'll take it and disappear. Tae-yoon will be hurt, but he'll get over it. Better a broken heart now than a ruined life later. The response email, from an address I didn't recognize. What if she doesn't take it? Ji-eun's reply. Then we'll know what she really wants, and we'll deal with it another way. Deal with it another way. What did that mean? I kept reading. More emails. Plans to make my life difficult if I stayed. Ideas about how to drive a wedge between Tae-yoon and me. It was all there. A systematic campaign to make me leave. And Tae-yoon's mother had known. There was an email from Ji-eun to her mother. I did what you suggested. Left the offer. Now we wait. The mother's response. You're a good daughter. Protecting this family is what matters. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped the papers. 3 years. 3 years of family dinners where they smiled at me while plotting behind my back. 3 years of me thinking if I just tried harder, was more patient, more understanding, they'd eventually accept me. They never planned to accept me. They planned to break me. I shoved the papers back in the envelope and left the cafe. Outside, the street was busy with afternoon traffic. I walked without direction. Just walked. My phone rang. Tae-yoon again. I couldn't talk to him. Not yet. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Then again. On the 4th call, I answered. Thandi, where are you? I've been calling for an hour. I'm out. I needed air. Are you okay? You sound strange. I'm fine. You're not fine. Tell me where you are. I'll come get you. Tae-yoon, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be completely honest. Of course. Anything. Did you know your sister tried to pay me to leave you before our wedding? Silence. Long, terrible silence. Tae-yoon, where did you hear that? His voice had changed. Careful now. Guarded. So, it's true. Thandi, it's complicated. When did you find out? After the wedding. Ji-eun told me a few months later. She felt guilty. And you never told me. I didn't want to hurt you. You were already struggling with my family. I thought telling you would make it worse. So you lied to me for 3 years. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you. That's the same thing, Tae-yoon. Where are you? Let me come to you. We need to talk about this face to face. I can't right now. I need time to think. Thandi, please. I hung up, turned off my phone, and kept walking. I walked for hours. Through Itaewon, past the shops and restaurants, past the foreign embassies, past the Namsan cable car station. My feet hurt, but I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Every time I tried to stand still, the emails flashed in my head. Ji-eun and her mother, planning my removal like I was a stain on their family portrait. Deal with it another way. Those words kept circling. What did they mean? Had the accident really been random? Or had someone in the family been connected to it all along? Tae-yoon's father said the other driver was connected to someone who owed them money. But what if it was more than that? What if someone in the family had been pulling strings for years? I shook my head. I was spiraling. I needed facts, not theories. By the time I turned my phone back on, I had 17 missed calls from Tae-yun and 3 from his mother. That was new. She'd never called me directly before. There was also a text from the grandmother. "Come to my house tomorrow at 10. Just you." I stared at that message for a long time. The grandmother had her own house, a small traditional place in Bukchon. She only invited people there when she had something serious to say. Tae-yun once told me she'd invited his grandfather there to tell him she was filing for divorce 40 years ago. Then she changed her mind and made him tea instead. I replied, "I'll be there." When I finally got home, Tae-yun was sitting on the couch waiting. He looked like he hadn't moved in hours. His eyes were red. "Where have you been?" he asked. His voice was hoarse. "Walking, thinking. Thandi, I've been out of my mind. I didn't know if you were safe, if you were hurt again, if you were ever coming back. I always come back. That's the problem, isn't it? I always come back to people who don't want me." He stood up. "I want you. I've always wanted you. But you didn't protect me. You knew what Jiyeon did, and you said nothing. You let me sit across from her at dinner every week, smiling at the woman who tried to pay me to leave her brother. I was wrong. I know that now. You knew it then, too. You just chose comfort over honesty." He had nothing to say to that. We stood on opposite sides of the living room like strangers. "I'm staying in the guest room tonight," I said. "Thandi, please don't shut me out." "I'm not shutting you out. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference." I grabbed a pillow and blanket and walked to the spare room. Behind me, I heard him sit back down heavily. The couch springs groaned. Then silence. I didn't sleep much. Around 3 in the morning, I heard him pacing in the hallway. He stopped outside the guest room door once. I held my breath. Then he walked away. At 9:30 the next morning, I left for the grandmother's house. Tae-yun was already gone. He'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "I love you. I'm going to fix this. Please trust me." I folded the note and put it in my pocket. Trust. That was the whole problem, wasn't it? The grandmother's house in Bukchon was exactly what you'd picture. Dark wooden beams, paper doors, a small garden with a persimmon tree she'd planted when she first married into the family 60 years ago. The house smelled like pine and old books. She was waiting for me on the porch, 2 cups of tea already poured. "You came," she said. "You invited me. Sit." I sat. The tea was barley, hot and bitter. She sipped hers and watched me over the rim. "You opened the envelope," she said. It wasn't a question. "I did. And now you know everything. I know GN tried to pay me off. I know your daughter-in-law helped plan it. I know they spent 3 years trying to drive me away. I don't call that everything. What else do you want to know? Did the accident have anything to do with your family?" The grandmother set down her cup. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked uncertain. Not guilty exactly, but uncomfortable. "The man who hit your car, he was angry at our family. His brother lost a business deal with my son's company. The family went bankrupt. The brother killed himself last year. I heard that part from your son. Then you know the accident wasn't random. But it wasn't planned by anyone in this family either. It was a broken man, seeking revenge on the people he blamed for his brother's death. You're sure about that?" "As sure as anyone can be." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe someone in the family hadn't arranged for me to be driven off the road, but after everything I'd learned, trust was hard to come by. "Why did you invite me here?" I asked. "Because tomorrow, there's a family gathering. My birthday." "I know. Tae-yun mentioned it. And you're planning to confront everyone." It wasn't a question. This woman saw everything. "Yes," I said. She nodded slowly. "Good." I blinked. "Good?" "You've been silent long enough. This family has gotten comfortable with your silence. They've mistaken your patience for weakness. It's time they learned the difference. You're not going to try to stop me. Why would I stop the truth? She poured more tea. A bird landed on the persimmon tree and sang something bright and careless. I envied that bird. Can I ask you something? I said. You just did. I almost smiled. Why didn't you stop Ji-un? 3 years ago. You knew about the check. You could have told Tae-yun. You could have stopped it. The grandmother looked out at her garden. Because I wanted to see what you would do. If you took the money, you weren't the right person for my grandson. If you stayed, you were. That's cruel. Yes, it was. I've had 3 years to think about it, and I've decided it was the cruelest thing I've ever done. You deserved better than being tested by an old woman who was afraid of change. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from her. One more question, I said. You're very demanding for someone drinking my tea. I almost laughed. Why did you tell me to leave Taeyeon that night, outside the house? At the dinner. She was quiet for a moment. Because I was testing you again. And you failed. You went out driving in the rain because an old woman's words hurt you. You could have died. I almost did. I know. And that's something I'll carry until I die. My words sent you out that door. Your accident is my guilt. We sat with that for a while. Two women from completely different worlds, sharing tea and painful honesty on a wooden porch in Bukchon. What do you want me to do tomorrow? I asked. I want you to say everything you need to say. Every hurt, every slight, every lie. Empty it all out. And then I want you to decide, with a clear heart, whether this family is worth saving. And if I decide it's not, then you'll leave with my respect. And Tae-yun will have to live with the consequences of his choices. I finished my tea and stood. Thank you for being honest with me. Thank you for being brave enough to come here. I walked to the gate, then turned back. For what it's worth, I think you're the only person in that family who's been real with me from the beginning. That's because I'm too old to pretend, she said. Old age has its advantages. I smiled. A real smile, the first one in days. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I spent them preparing. Not with notes or speeches, but by sitting with my feelings, letting every hurt surface, every moment of rejection, every dinner where I swallowed my pride, every time Tae-yun squeezed my hand under the table instead of standing up for me. I cried. A lot. I cried for the woman who'd moved to a foreign country full of hope. I cried for the bride who'd walked down the aisle toward a family that didn't want her. I cried for every smile I'd faked and every tear I'd hidden. Then I stopped crying. And I got angry. Tae-yun tried to talk to me 3 times that day. The first time, I told him I needed space. The second time, I told him we'd talk tomorrow. The third time, around midnight, he sat on the floor outside the guest room door and said, I know you're awake. I know you probably don't want to hear this. But I'm going to say it anyway. I love you. I've loved you since the day you walked into my studio with fabric samples and that look on your face like you were about to conquer the world. And I've failed you every single day since then, by not fighting for you the way you deserved. Tomorrow, whatever happens, I want you to know that I choose you. I've always chosen you. I was just too scared to say it out loud. I pressed my hand against the door. On the other side, I could hear him breathing. I know you can hear me, Thondi. I know because you've always listened, even when nobody else was paying attention. So hear this. Tomorrow I'm going to stand next to you. Not behind you, not on the sidelines. Next to you. And whatever you say, whatever they say, I'm not going to flinch. A tear rolled down my cheek. I didn't wipe it away. Also, he added, and I could hear the nervousness in his voice, I ate all the leftover kimchi jjigae because I was stress eating, and I'm sorry. I know that was your lunch for tomorrow. I pressed my lips together to keep from laughing. Trust Tae-yun to crack a joke at the worst possible moment. It was one of the things I loved about him. Good night, Thondi, he said. I heard him stand up and walk away. I sat against the door for a long time after that. The next evening came faster than I expected. Taeyun's mother had organized the birthday dinner at their house. The whole family would be there. Grandmother, parents, Ji-eun and her husband. Even some aunts and uncles I barely knew. I got dressed carefully, not to impress anyone, but for myself. I wore a dress I'd designed, deep green with gold threading, a blend of African fabric and Korean tailoring. I looked in the mirror and saw someone who'd been patient for too long. "You look incredible," Taeyun said when I came out. "Thank you." He offered his hand. I took it. Not because everything was forgiven, but because we were walking into this together. Finally. The drive to his parents' house was quiet, but not the painful kind. More like the quiet before a storm. Both of us knew what was coming. When we arrived, the house was full. More people than I expected. His parents, Ji-eun and her husband and kids, 2 aunts, an uncle, the grandmother, sitting in her corner, watching me with those sharp eyes. Everyone smiled when we walked in. Everyone said hello. His mother complimented my dress. Ji-eun hugged me. The aunts cooed over how well I looked after the accident. I played along, smiled, thanked them, accepted a glass of wine, made small talk about the weather and work and the kids' school projects. The dinner was beautiful. His mother had outdone herself. Multiple courses, all traditional Korean dishes, arranged with the kind of care she'd never shown when I helped her cook. I barely ate. My stomach was in knots. Taeyun kept glancing at me. He knew. He could feel the energy coming off me like heat. Halfway through dinner, the grandmother caught my eye. She gave the smallest nod, almost imperceptible, but I saw it. It was time. I set down my chopsticks, took a breath, and stood. The table went quiet. Conversations stopped. Everyone looked at me. "I need to say something," I began. My voice was steady, steadier than I expected. "Thandiwei, this is a birthday dinner," his mother started. "I know. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've been silent for 3 years, and I can't be silent anymore." The room tensed. Ji-eun's hand froze over her glass. Taeyun's father set down his napkin. "I want to start by thanking you for the birthday dinner," I said to the grandmother. "Everything is beautiful. You deserve to be celebrated." The grandmother inclined her head. "But I also need to tell you all a truth that's going to be uncomfortable, and I need you to let me finish before anyone responds." Silence. I was awake that night in the hospital. His mother's face drained of color. Ji-eun's wineglass slipped from her fingers and hit the table, spilling red across the white cloth. Nobody moved to clean it up. "I heard everything you said about me. Every word. Every confession. Every judgment." "Thandiwei," his mother whispered. "We didn't know you could hear." "I know. That's the only reason you told the truth." The aunts and uncle were looking around confused. They didn't know what I was talking about. But the core family did. Every single one of them. "I heard you, Mother, say you never accepted me and hoped it was temporary. I heard you talk about the judgment from your friends and the whispers at church." His mother's eyes filled with tears. "I heard you, Jian, admit that you deliberately excluded me from family events because you wanted me to give up and leave." Jian opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "And I heard the grandmother say that someone in this family tried to pay me to leave Taeyun before our wedding." Now even the aunts were staring. The uncle leaned forward. "I found the envelope," I continued. I reached into my bag and pulled it out. Set it on the table between the spilled wine and the birthday cake. 50 million won, a check from Jian's account. Emails between you and Mother planning every detail. The room erupted, voices overlapping, the uncle demanding explanations, the aunts whispering to each other, Ji-eun's husband looking at his wife like he'd never seen her before. "Is this true?" he asked Ji-eun. She didn't answer. She was staring at the envelope like it was a snake. "Answer him," the grandmother said sharply. "Yes," Ji-eun whispered. "It's true. I wrote the check. I left it at her apartment before the wedding." The room went dead silent. Why? Her husband asked. Because I was scared. I was scared of what people would say. I was scared my brother was making the biggest mistake of his life. I was scared our family would be the subject of gossip forever. So your solution was to pay his fiancée to disappear? He sounded disgusted. I thought I was protecting us. Protecting who? I asked. My voice was calm, but my hands were shaking. Because it wasn't me, and it wasn't Tae-yoon. It was yourself. Ji-eun started crying, not the pretty kind of crying, the ugly, snot-running, gasping kind. Her daughter reached for her hand, but Ji-eun pulled away. I helped her, his mother said suddenly. Everyone turned to her. She was sitting rigid, tears streaming down her face. Ji-eun came to me with the idea. I should have stopped her. Instead, I encouraged it. I gave her the amount to offer. I told her what to write in the note. Why? I asked. Because I agreed with her. I didn't want you in this family. I didn't know you. I only knew what you represented. Change, difference, questions I didn't want to answer. And now? She looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time. Now I know I was wrong. You've been nothing but kind and patient and graceful, under a weight that would have broken most people. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway. Tae-yoon stood up. He moved to stand beside me, his hand finding mine, squeezing it. But this time it meant something different. I need to say something too, he said. His voice was shaking. I knew about the check, Ji-eun told me after the wedding. She was crying, full of guilt, and she begged me not to tell Thandiwe. And I agreed. I agreed because I thought I was protecting my wife from pain, but I was really protecting myself from confrontation. He turned to face me. I spent 3 years asking you to be patient with people who didn't deserve your patience. I squeezed your hand under tables when I should have stood up and fought. I told you they were trying when they weren't. I made you feel alone in a family that was supposed to be yours too. His voice broke. I failed you, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Thandi. The room was silent except for the sound of Ji-eun crying and the clock ticking on the wall. His father spoke next. I also have something to say. Everyone looked at him. He rarely spoke at family gatherings. He was the quiet one, the observer, the man who let everyone else make decisions while he watched from the background. 3 years ago, when Tae-yoon told us he was marrying Thandiwe, I opposed it. Not because I didn't like her, I barely knew her, but because I was afraid. Afraid of the same things my wife was afraid of. Judgment, gossip, change. He paused. But unlike my wife and my daughter, I didn't try to interfere. I stepped back and let it happen. And over the past 3 years, I've watched Thandiwe handle this family with more dignity than any of us deserved. She showed up to dinners where she was treated like an outsider and never once complained. She helped my wife in the kitchen, even when my wife treated her like a servant. She remembered everyone's birthdays. She learned our language, our customs, our traditions. She gave everything to this family, and we gave her nothing back. His voice was rough, like the words were being dragged out of him. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of this family, and I'm ashamed of myself for not speaking up sooner. The grandmother raised her hand. The room fell silent. I'm the oldest person here, she said, so you'll all listen whether you want to or not. Nobody argued. I tested this girl 3 years ago. I watched to see if she would take the money and run. She didn't. I told her to leave my grandson. She stayed. I was cruel, and I called it wisdom. I was prejudiced, and I called it tradition. She looked at each family member, one by one. Every person at this table has failed this woman, including me. We wrapped our fear in fancy words and called it love for the family. But love doesn't exclude. Love doesn't pay people to disappear. Love doesn't sit in silence while someone suffers. She turned to me. Thandiwe, you came to this family from far away. You gave my grandson the happiest years of his life, and we repaid you with cruelty. I don't know if you can forgive us. I don't know if you should, but I want you to know that this old woman sees you now. truly sees you, and I'm sorry." The room was heavy with everything that had been said. The birthday cake sat untouched. The wine stain had spread across the tablecloth like a map of all the damage. I looked at Tae-yoon. He was crying openly, not trying to hide it. His hand still held mine, tighter now. I looked at his mother, who couldn't meet my eyes. I looked at Ji-eun, who had stopped crying, but looked like she might start again at any moment. I looked at the grandmother, who was watching me with something new in her expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "I need to think," I said finally. "I've had 3 years of pretending everything was fine. I can't promise you forgiveness tonight, but I can promise you honesty, and right now, honestly, I'm hurt, I'm angry, and I'm exhausted." "That's fair," the grandmother said. "But," I continued, "I also see something I haven't seen before. Real honesty from this family. Ugly, uncomfortable honesty. And that's a start." Tae-yoon pulled me closer. Not dramatically, not like in the movies, just close enough that our shoulders touched. Close enough that I could feel his warmth and his fear and his hope all at once. "We're going to leave now," he said to the room. "Thandi needs rest, and I think everyone here has a lot to think about." Nobody argued. As we walked to the door, the grandmother called out, "Thandi Wei." I turned. "Happy birthday to me was the wrong occasion for this," she said with a hint of a smile. "But it might have been the best gift I've ever received." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. The drive home was quiet again, but this time, when Tae-yoon reached for my hand, I let him hold it. "I'm still angry at you," I said. "I know. You kept a huge secret from me for 3 years. I know, and you need to do better, not just today, every day. I know. Stop saying I know." "Okay, what should I say instead?" "Say you'll fight for me, even when it's hard, even when it's your family, even when it's uncomfortable." He pulled the car over, turned to face me. His eyes were still red from crying, but there was something solid in them now, something that hadn't been there before. "I will fight for you," he said, "not just when it's convenient, not just with hand squeezes under tables. I will fight for you out loud, in front of everyone, every single time, because you're my wife, and you deserve someone who shows up for you the way you've always shown up for me." "Butterflies," I said. "What?" "Nothing. I felt butterflies." He smiled, the kind of smile that made me fall in love with him in the first place, warm and honest and just for me. "Can I take you home now?" he asked. "Yes, but I'm still sleeping in the guest room tonight." I expected that. "And you're buying me breakfast tomorrow." "Done." "And you're replacing the kimchi jjigae you ate." "Also done." We drove home, and for the first time in 3 years, the silence between us felt like hope instead of distance. The weeks that followed were not easy. Forgiveness isn't a light switch. It's more like a sunrise, slow and gradual, with moments where darkness creeps back in. His mother called me twice that first week. Both times, she stumbled over her words, clearly trying but unsure how to bridge the gap she'd created. On the second call, she asked if I'd come to dinner. Just the 2 of us. I said yes. It was awkward, painfully awkward. She burned the rice, I dropped a dish. We sat across from each other at her kitchen table, 2 women with years of hurt between them, trying to find common ground. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "Neither do I. Maybe we can figure it out together." Maybe. It wasn't a movie moment. There was no dramatic hug or tearful reconciliation, but there was an invitation and an acceptance, and sometimes that's enough to start. Ji-eun sent me a letter, handwritten, 5 pages. She didn't make excuses. She listed every cruel thing she'd done, every event she'd excluded me from, every whispered comment. Then she listed every good thing about me she'd ignored. My talent, my kindness, the way I treated her children with genuine love. "I don't deserve a sister-in-law like you," she wrote. "But I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to become a sister you deserve." I didn't respond right away. I needed to sit with it, but I kept the letter, read it a few times, let her words sink in. The grandmother invited me for tea again. This time, she showed me old photos of herself as a young bride. She'd married into a family that didn't approve of her either. She was from a poor village. Her husband's family thought she was beneath them. "I spent 20 years earning their respect," she said. "It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I made my granddaughter-in-law go through the same thing, because I forgot what it felt like." She handed me a photo. A young woman standing in front of a traditional house, looking uncertain but determined. The young woman was her, 60 years ago. "Keep it," she said. "So you know you're not the first person in this family to fight for your place." I put that photo on my desk at work. It reminded me that change was possible, even if it took a long time. 3 months after the confrontation, Tae-yoon and I attended another family dinner. The same house, the same table, but different. His mother had set a place for me at the head of the table, next to the grandmother. When I pointed it out, she said, "You've earned it." Ji-eun brought a photo album. Inside were pictures from our wedding that she'd removed years ago. She'd kept them in a box in her closet. "I took them down because looking at them made me feel guilty," she said. "But they belong in the family album, where everyone can see them." We put them back together, page by page. Me in my wedding dress. Tae-yoon's face when he saw me walking down the aisle. His grandmother dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Even his mother, standing stiff but present. "Look," I said, pointing to one photo. "Your mother is almost smiling." "It was gas," his mother said from across the room. I looked at her. She looked at me. And then, for the first time, we both laughed. It wasn't perfect after that. Some things never are. There were still awkward moments, still conversations that stopped when I entered rooms, not because they were hiding things, but because they hadn't figured out how to include me yet. Still holidays where I felt the pull of being different, still days when old wounds ached, but there were also new things. Ji-eun texting me memes at 2 in the morning, his mother asking for my recipe for sadza and trying to make it herself, badly, but trying. His father taking me aside at a family gathering and saying quietly, "I'm glad you stayed." The grandmother teaching me how to make her secret kimchi recipe, the one she'd never shared with anyone. And Tae-yoon, my husband, the man who'd spent years keeping peace instead of fighting for me. He was different now. Not perfect, but different. When his aunt made a comment about mixed children at a family picnic, he didn't squeeze my hand under the table. He stood up and said, "Aunt, if you have something to say about my wife or our future children, say it to my face so I can correct you properly." The aunt didn't say another word. I squeezed his hand under the table for once. One evening, about 6 months after the hospital, we were sitting on our balcony, watching the lights of Seoul spread out below us like scattered jewels. "Fondi," he said. "Hmm? Thank you." "For what?" "For staying, for fighting, for not giving up on us when you had every reason to." I almost did. That night in the rain, I was thinking about leaving. I know, and I wouldn't have blamed you. Your grandmother's words pushed me out the door that night. She told me to leave you. She told me. She also told me it was the biggest regret of her life. People say things they don't mean sometimes. Sometimes they mean them and change their minds later. We sat in comfortable silence. The city hummed below us. Somewhere, a car horn honked, a dog barked, normal sounds, safe sounds. Tae-yoon. Yes? If we have kids someday, they're going to face a lot. In this country, in this family. I know. Are you ready for that? He turned to look at me. With you beside me? I'm ready for anything. I leaned my head on his shoulder. He wrapped his arm around me, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. Not because his family had finally accepted me, though they were trying. Not because the hurt had disappeared, because some of it hadn't, not because everything was perfect, because nothing ever is, but because I'd learned something important. Home isn't a place you're given, it's a place you build, sometimes with people who didn't want you there at first. Sometimes with tears and arguments and broken trust that takes years to mend. But you build it anyway, brick by brick, day by day, meal by meal, conversation by conversation. And sometimes, if you're lucky, the people who tried to push you out become the same people who pull up a chair and say, "Sit with us. You belong here." That's my story. Not a fairy tale, not a tragedy. Just a woman from Zimbabwe who married a man from Seoul and fought for her place in a family that didn't know how to love her yet. The key word being yet.